what might you ask as far as questions go to the elders?
Well, first, I want to thank the elders for being accessible to us to be able to help us grow and reclaim our original purpose.
Cool.
And the first question is really one we were talking about, which is the discussion in the book about when we are in transition between lifetimes, and the idea that, as I understand it, that we begin to plan our next lifetime with the help of enlightened beings that are helping us, and that we will essentially go as far in that growth planning as we ask for, and that one of the things we need to learn to do at that time is ask for more guidance to get us back toward our original purpose. And I'm wondering how we can retain the knowledge between this lifetime and the transition time to ask that question.
We would say that when you are in that space of transitory wonder, that all does travel with you from that which you did conspire to believe and perceive while physically placed. And in that space, there is not the mental box nor the egoic measure to distract and to elicit a change of direction, of course, preference from those distractions. And so it is more the full recall, the full understanding and belief system that then does travel concurrently with you to that next point in time, so that you then formulate what will become those next steps you do take in the next incarnation.
So the ego resistance that we experience in this lifetime is not there, but we do carry our belief system with us. And the limitation on us is no longer the ego, it's the beliefs that we hold in our hearts at that time. Is that true?
So we would say that the belief system does travel with
Mhm.
you, and whether or not that belief is so is not discerned one
Mhm.
way from the other, but rather the reinforcement of the belief held irrespective of the posturing of the belief itself. And so know that there is not then the mental questioning and the egoic pondering as such, because ego and the mind do not travel
Mhm.
with you into that space.
So if we accept the idea and believe the principle that there will be more growth possible than we can envision, and we ask for that help, then we will remember to ask.
We would say that at that point, there is the recollection and recalling of
Mhm.
all that has been ascertained to believe.
Excellent. Thank you.
And so you will want to then focus upon that for a time so that it does become firmly affixed and anchored within the belief system that you now hold. And so as you further anchor and establish it within your being, it will then be that which does germinate and bubble up to be recognized. But we would say also that it is the posturing of asking always for more. For there is the limitation of moving too quickly and enlisting what comes before you without the full understanding of what may be before you and in play.
Is it a good habit to get into asking for help and guidance from those enlightened spirits while we're in this lifetime? And how do we best do that?
We would say to pause, contemplate, muse upon all that you believe to be so at this current point in time. And it is holding a space of looking at life from a disinterested standpoint. In other words, you do not want to be in the midst of the drama in a lower vibratory way when you do a reflective sort of rendering of what is within your life and what has been accomplished. But rather, we would say that you want to look in an unimpassioned way, but in a more reflective way, in a musing and wonderment as the child way, so that then when you look upon what has been accomplished, what has been done, what has been undertaken, then it is more clearly seen and can be then incorporated as you move forward. But know now this, that as you look upon all of these things, that you do so routinely and often. For it is when you think that you know and that you have found the way and now you are going to move forward to enact and to do those things, that at that point, before you dipped your toe into the water, so to speak, that you then look once again with that musing and with that contemplative eye to see if it really is truly as you envision it to be. And we would say that it is from the centering of the heart space. It is from that place and posture that you then look upon these things and do not so do from the mental posturing. For it is when you get the confirmation from the mental knowingness that you may be going adjacent to and perhaps adrift to what is.
So tune into the heart center. What about the other side of that coin? On the one hand, you can be very certain that there's a right way, there's a thing to do, and you want to charge forward, and you're saying to reflect before doing that. What about the other side where you see so many possibilities, you don't know which way to go, and you want to ask Spirit for guidance? Because many of us do not have the kind of connection to a source like you, or we don't believe we do. And so what do you suggest about getting guidance at those times of indecision?
We would say that there is always guidance about you. It is that you stop to linger, to look, and to ask, and to still the mind to allow entrance into this world of form so that you might hear what is being given. For each time the call is made, there is an answer, but you must look as the detective who does sleuth out what it seeks to find. And so you must always be in that posing methodology of wonderment and of knowing that there is more to be enlisted and seen. And when you recognize this, then you will often grow to know and to feel your way through each occurrence. And you will know deeply held when something feels as it is to be so and not. For those that are not as they need to be, then do shift and move and change and cause that uncertainty and the unsteadiness of what might be elicited otherwise. But we would say that there is always guidance about you. And it is perhaps that you have not fully connected to that guidance, but know that it is there and waits to be engaged often.
So as you look at us, all of us billions of people who call for help on a regular basis, what do you see as the things that block us from receiving?
We would say that the mind and ego enter in to elicit a quick fix and do pause the mind to divert and digress and to consider things that might be a rapid solution. But oftentimes, the rapid solution is not the long term one. And so you will soon find yourself back in a similar occurrence in a most troubling way. And it is then that you must look to see why you are there again. And so, if you will but pause the mind and enlist resources such as the pausing meditational offering that is given, so that you move the mind off and onto the shelf and away, then you have the opportunity to create that open space where more might enter in. And then you might hear the small, soft voice, the voice that is meek and mild and does offer more within the equation to give you a long-term solution that is not a reactionary one.
How do we help other people who may be resisting, maybe not even know to ask the question, to understand the things that you're talking about, the things that you're teaching?
We would say the best way is to be that example, to be the one that they want to emulate and to move to become. For isn't that the way that all life might flow? In that when you move within and do the work individually, then others see the energy that you evoke and project, and they then want to be like that. And so move in that regard, not trying to perhaps influence, but to be the betterment within oneself, so that your energy is buoyed up, and then all who come around you are buoyed up as well. And then they then move in that energetic flow and can be in that space. And when they separate from that energy, there is a longing to return.
Thank you. I'm curious about, you know, there are many pathways, many, I don't even want to label them as anything other than pathways of belief that people feel will get them closer to spirit. There's a man that refers to the right path for you as the path with heart, the path that feels that it has heart for you. What if you were, not sure how to ask this really, if someone were choosing a pathway to get them from this incarnation to finally realizing their original purpose, what would you say that pathway would include? What kinds of learning, what kinds of practices would you suggest to people?
We would say that when you move into the portal and pathway of choice, there is that discernment that must go on to recognize what feels the best and will move you accordingly. And so there are different methodologies that are in play and might be incorporated when the mind becomes stilled and more is allowed entrance into this world of form. And so when you recognize that more is always available, you then take that deep breath. You then take the overarching and moving, transitioning objective to seek and become more. And there are various methodologies which we have given, and there are steps that can be taken. And we would say that in time, it will be as it will be, for many will move in a way that will begin to shift and change. And the dynamics then will be as such that each will be able to incorporate more into their being. But often there is, as we have heard, an immersion where there is so much information that it is hard to digest, hard to get what has been given when it has been given in a format that has filled as a cup to overflowing. And so we would say that oftentimes to listen and then re-listen and listen again to what has been given, because many answers are there. And it is only a matter of allowing yourself time to address and incorporate them. Ego seeks rapidity and the rapidness of movement and flow. And oftentimes it is not that, but something else that will get you into that space. And it is that pausing and slowing and seeking and setting the intention for each thing to move as it might in the formulation and flow that is acceptable within your being and world. And so there is nothing wrong with taking a pause, taking that time to digest what has been given, and knowing that one methodology that was given might be one method or manner, but there may also be other methods and manners that will be more acceptable once there has been a infusion of understanding. And that infusion can only happen when you stop and pause and allow it to be. And so seek as you have known to pause and stop and reflect, and perhaps even listen again, and perhaps again another time, because there is more that has been given that perhaps was at the tipping point of being able to receive. And so you will find that there is more than you perhaps saw before when you have had the time to do the inner reflection and the absorption of the information given. And there is nothing wrong with that. It is, in fact, the way it is. And so we look to having further discussions once that absorption has taken place.
As do I. Now, is there anything else that I'm not asking you that I should be asking you? Anything you want me to know, us to know?
We would say that there is a melding and a churning and a turning at this time, and that there is much in flux and flow. And we would say, rather than giving more at this time and seeing the consciousness as we do, that we will wait and allow the processing of the information to occur. And then we will see where we stand at that point in time.
Thank you, elders.
Mhm.